opposed to the system stuff that Robbie talked about and that we've talked about quite a bit individually. After some of our sessions, we've had kind of a little debriefing about the system. Robbie, in his post, asked about what's the pedigree of this resolution system. And here on the sheet, and it's so important that, it's right here on the sheet, the little, outcomes. Ooh, there we go. Yeah. The little outcomes of your rolls. Your character is rated by a number, and you roll percentage dice, and you find that number on the left, and you go over, and then that tells you across the top the adjective in question. That's a good roll. That's a good result. That's a feeble result. That's an awesome result. And then the GM knows how they're supposed to narrate the outcome. It's actually pretty clear in the book exactly what each of those mean. None of those is like the others. It's stepped. It's not a gradient. So what else does that? What game is like that? And the answer is, well, the pedigree is awfully clear to me. It is right here in Marvel Superheroes from 1984 and its famous Universal Table, which is here. Now, the design of those two boxes is everted. So, therefore, there are three components. There's your character's rating, there's the outcome, and then there's the percentage roll. And so they're rearranged in those tables so that the tables aren't visually equivalent, but all the same variables are there. So you can basically rewrite the Legendary Lives table as if it were Marvel Superheroes, effortlessly in cognitive terms, but I'm not going to take the logistic time to do it. What I will say is that if you do it, one difference jumps out, and I think it's a significant difference, which here in Marvel Superheroes you will see the white, green, yellow, and red are asymmetrical. White, incidentally, is basically miss, and red is amazing burgers. And so, again, look at it again. You'll see that there's a lot more white than red, and that white is disproportionately large compared to other results, any of the other results. And also that only one stripe, diagonal stripe, is uniform, and that's the green one, which is basically, okay, you succeeded, and that's that. That's the only one that's just one nice diagonal stripe along its position in the table. It's not running from lower corner to opposite upper corner in the table. It's shifted down because the white range is so big, but that's its shape, and none of the others have that shape. Whereas if you do this for Legendary Lives, what you'll get is a bunch of fairly uniform stripes running down at diagonals, and that the basic outcome, sort of what we called, the magic line, which in the configuration of that table was a vertical line down the middle, basically would run, if it was redrawn as this table, it would run straight from the lower left corner, wham, like an arrow, straight to that upper right corner. So what this means is that in Marvel Superheroes, you're not going to be getting these monstrous results in a kind of uniform split probability comparison with the crap results. In a way, it's built so that you're not going to get, you're trying to have Galactus battles in the same game that you're having Daredevil battles, and so you end up with this asymmetrical table. Legendary Lives is kind of interesting in that it takes ordinary actions and you get that same range much more uniformly distributed. What this really means is that you get these crazy pinwheeling outcomes all the time. And to the extent that even across roll-heavy play for 18 sessions, Rod's character Christabel, who on paper is an extremely stable, emotionally stable character, ended up being a flibbertigibbet, just because she, failed sanity checks and failed a couple other things, and just ended up being a lot more scattered and her character's class is interrogator, and whenever she used that interrogation ability, that special class ability, it was extremely plot significant, but otherwise she was, kind of a ditz, which is not really what we see on the sheet. Same thing goes to a lesser extent for my character, Shining Star, who had rather decent abilities in terms of being a spy, which is her character class, or type, they call it. And yet the rolls just went shit, and Shining Star is a really lousy spy, and kind of had to get by on moxie and a few good rolls on her sanity checks and stuff like that to have her sense of effectiveness. So there is there's something about that table, I think, that could use, perhaps it's a little too wargamey fair. Your side is fair against my side, and we're going to roll fair, and here's my rating, and it's better than yours. So in the fullness of time, I'll end up looking better than you in this way. And that's perhaps true if we just rolled that same ability, like, constantly and against your ability. But in this game, you have a real... you have a million abilities, and so therefore that kind of uniformity of effect that eventually emerges, or that betterness of effect that eventually would emerge, doesn't really emerge, because in games like this and in role-playing games, you have, instead of a constant comparison of, coin flips, and then you bias the coin flip on this side with a bonus. Instead of that, what you have is a random walk, because each roll has its own specific outcome that puts your character in a new situation. So even if you have a pretty good ability, you can do a random walk downward pretty fast in a game like this. So therefore, I don't really see it as a failed system, but it has a catastrophic, awesome, who knows what kind of set of outcomes that creates sort of a Perils of Pauline play, where your character ends up landed in a completely crazy situation. There is the careening of Robbie's character Girl across Smith City as she was simply trying to make her way from one place to another. The careening of craziness that she encountered and did. The manure cart with the Yeti, and it just goes on and on. It's extremely entertaining in a way where you're saying, all right, am I really playing my guy? This character that I actually was pretty invested in, and their goals and their proactivity, that doesn't really mesh well with this crazy quilt of, almost pratfall based or super lucky. You get the idea that you did really well at things, not because you're good at them, but because you were super lucky in that moment. So it's really, I'm not sure. In fact, I can say after 18 sessions, I am sure that it could use a little more of a superheroing of asymmetry in that table, in a number of ways. I've thought too, do we really want to take tens in this? That's the term that I know from D20, where you could look at your situation and say, you know what, I'm not going to roll, I'm just going to take 10. And which means I get, the minimal success on this, and we'll move on. And the way that rule is in place so that you don't have ridiculous results on things that are real straightforward and everybody is seeing as, okay, my guy can do that, and we'll just do it and move. But then I got to thinking, well, yeah, but that would kind of dilute a lot of things in Legendary Lives, because there are places where the roles matter. I do think the asymmetry would be helpful here too, but since you have separate abilities for telling the truth and being heard, being trusted in it, and lying, those are two completely different abilities. So failure or success at doing one of those creates a very distinctive array of who trusts whom and who knows or believes what. Then there is also the intuition role and the fate role for coincidence and insight. And incomplete information and varying degrees of trust instantly play a huge role in how the game goes. And I would hate to see that go away. That actually is an very, very rich scenario generating and scenario moving forward set of devices. And I don't think changing the symmetry of the table would change that, but you definitely don't want take tens in there, especially for anything like that. So it's, it deserves fair and clear and in-depth experimentation with the workings of that table. Well, so I think that does it with my little reflection debrief at this stage anyway, and I'll look forward to seeing what all the other people involved say. Happy to answer any questions about the game. It is available for free, so wouldn't be at all surprised to see some people clicking on that and scratching their heads and seeing what they come up with. Would love to see videos that people make of themselves making up a character as they go through. Certainly that's how our game got going, and I wouldn't be surprised to see games launch just because people do that.